Talk of a special session of Congress on the Mideast crisis. Last details of a use of force resolution hammered out at the UN, and a report on the human cost of the military buildup. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Ratto reporting. Good evening. President Bush may be getting ready to switch his position tonight and call a special session of Congress. The purpose would be to get backing for his Persian Gulf policy, including support for sending U.S. forces into combat without a declaration of war. All of this comes on the eve of a scheduled UN Security Council vote on a U.S. resolution demanding that Iraq get out of Kuwait by January 15th or else. Mr. Bush's latest move on Congress also came as two of this nation's former top military commanders cautioned today that it might be a mistake to rush into war with Iraq. Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has the latest. Bob?
Dan, CBS News has learned that the president is now strongly considering calling the Congress back into session before Christmas to seek approval for the same resolution authorizing the use of force in the Persian Gulf that the UN Security Council is expected to approve tomorrow. The White House won't comment on this, but the Senate Republican leader Bob Dole, after talking with the president today, said he is now convinced chances are better than 50-50 that Congress will be called back. This disclosure coming just as calls for military restraint were intensifying here at the Capitol. From two former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff came the same message today. Patience. The economic sanctions against Saddam Hussein are working. Stick with them.
My main concern with this latest scheduled reinforcement isn't that we might choose to fight, but rather that the deployment might cause us to fight, perhaps prematurely and perhaps unnecessarily.
It would be a sad commentary if Saddam Hussein, a two-bit tyrant, proved to be more patient than the United States.
But to Jones, there are sound military reasons for waiting out Saddam Hussein.
But I think overall, his military capability will deteriorate in the next 9 to 12 months.
The role of hawk fell to former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who fears warfare is likely because sanctions may not work.
I don't think you can get away from the basic premise that you're advocating that the United States go to war, and go to war soon.
If there is military action, it should consist of the selective destruction of specific military targets relevant to the military capability of Iraq.
But Kissinger was one of the few hardliners heard today, and across town, House Majority Leader Gebhardt was telling an audience the president has not yet made the case for a military attack.
Congress and the American people will need to be convinced that the policy of pressure, isolation, and sanctions has failed.
Gebhardt and other congressional leaders will find out more about what the president plans to ask from them on Friday when he's invited the congressional leadership to the White House. Dan?
Bob Schieffer, thanks. Our State Department correspondent Bill Plant is standing by this evening at the United Nations, where he reports Secretary of State Baker is doing some last-minute diplomatic arm twisting. Bill?
Well, Dan, it's clear tonight that that resolution on the use of force is going to pass here at the UN tomorrow, probably by 12 or 13 votes out of 15 on the Security Council. But the Secretary of State has a few problems tonight. The Cubans have introduced a resolution on the Palestinians, which the U.S. will probably wind up vetoing, but they're just trying to get it to stop it from coming up before the vote tomorrow. And the other problem tonight is the Chinese. The Chinese are holding out. Their foreign minister said before he left China that he probably couldn't vote yes, although they have assured the U.S. privately that they won't veto. So as soon as the foreign minister lands in New York, very late tonight or early tomorrow morning, Baker will meet with him and make him a new offer and see if he can get a yes vote. Dan?
Bill, with war and peace hanging in the balance, it sounds like some old-fashioned political horse trading is going on.
Dan, this is absolutely classic backroom political deal-making, the kind of thing that James A. Baker has been doing for years. Baker wants the Chinese vote. The Chinese want an end to the sanctions that were imposed on them after Tiananmen Square, and maybe they'll settle for a meeting with President Bush when their foreign minister comes to Washington after the vote.
Bill Plant at the UN. In Baghdad, a spokesman for Muhammad Ali says the former boxing champion will be returning to the United States with at least 14 American hostages. He says Ali will be given a list tomorrow, expects to leave for home on Saturday. The U.S. State Department said today that Iraqi troops searching house to house have arrested 2 more Americans in hiding in Kuwait. If it comes to war in the Gulf, it will be the first the U.S. fights with an all-volunteer army. But the prospect of fighting and dying is already having an effect. A lot fewer are volunteering these days. Defense Department correspondent David Martin has been looking into this.
Want you to assume the position of attention. Your heels are together, feet at a 45-degree angle, hands are straight by your sides, head looking straight and tall.
Volunteers, young men and women signing on for military service today in Maryland. Most of them attracted by the wages and benefits offered by the all-volunteer Army.
Well, I decided to join the Army to better prepare myself for the future and all the other type of benefit that the Army will bring to help me and my family.
But now that the lure of being all you can be includes the prospect of being stuck in the Saudi desert and perhaps even going to war, some of the volunteers are changing their minds.
In fact, I have a cousin who enlisted. Well, he went to MAPS and took the test, and he kind of like backed out once he knew that there was an invasion or he thought there was going to be a war, so he's not going.
For 3 months in a row, the Army has failed to meet its recruiting goal for young men. In November, slightly more than 4,000 men enlisted, nearly a third less than the Army wanted.
In previous years, we have missed the recruiting objective in certain months. It is unusual to that magnitude to have such a miss of the objective.
There are several factors, including a cut in the number of recruiters. But one reason is the threat of war.
We also recognize that there is probably some effect of Desert Shield on the ability of the recruits to bring in soldiers.
It's natural. I mean, we couldn't sit here and say there is no concern. There are people that come in and ask questions.
The Army is not in any immediate danger of running out of recruits, but the concept of an all-volunteer force, which works so well in peacetime, appears to be faltering now that the country seems headed toward war. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
In addition to the troops sent to the Gulf from bases in this country, many American soldiers stationed in Germany are also desert-bound. Their departure can be traumatic for spouses and children left behind, suddenly on their own in a foreign land. Anthony Mason in London reports.
Recess at Stuttgart High, a high school much like any other all-American high school, except it's on a military base near Stuttgart, Germany. And ask for a show of hands in any class here. At least half have a father or mother now ordered out to the Gulf.
I always had my dad there, home for Christmas and everything. And now, he's gonna be gone to Saudi.
They're already packing, telling their children they're going to that big sandbox called the Middle East.
He just knows I'm going to play in the desert.
The soldiers have been given their orders. So too now have their daughters and sons.
He told me to take good care of my mom and walk my dogs every day.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I gotta take care of my stepmom, my little brother, and try to keep my grades up for him.
For some, it's just one parent who's going. For some, it's two.
They told me if I do lose both of them, to take care of my brother and be more responsible. That I have to look out for him. Make sure both of us go to college and get through.
17-year-old Kip Ward was ready to shoulder the responsibility to take care of his two little brothers while his mother, a single parent, goes off to the Gulf.
She's depending on me to do a lot of things. You know, I have to grow up faster.
But then his mother told him he'll have to leave school, go back to America, because his grandmother can't afford the trip to Germany to help out.
Eat it, Dan.
I really don't have no choice right now.
The pain of families dividing. Even in the seasonal excitement along the school corridors, it's hard to hide the anxiety.
My father's being sent this Thursday, and he's pretty high up there, so I'm not really worried about him. But it's my brother, you know. He's like 19 years old, and I understand that he has to go. And I mean, I'm in the Army, I'm an Army child, and I understand that. But he's my brother, and he's the only person that, you know, he's my only brother, and I love him. And I want him to be alive to see his wife or his children or something, you know. I want him to be alive. And I pray to God that he doesn't go, but I know he will. We'll see.
As the family goes, one general declared this week, so goes the soldier. At Stuttgart High, the families are just holding on. Anthony Mason, CBS News, London.
Ahead on the CBS Evening News, Ron Allen on the danger to the most expensive stretch of highway in the country. And Jerry Bowen on a huge part of the country where the towns are just dwindling away.
Motorola cellular phones are built to stand up to the toughest customers.
Hi, Mom.
So ask for Motorola,
Hi, he's been a little angel.
because the way we put them together sets us apart.
Are you confused about oat bran? I'm not surprised. One day you hear it's a cure-all, the next you hear it's hype. You don't know what to believe. But there's one cereal that's been good for you for almost 100 years. Nabisco shredded wheat. It's pure whole wheat with plenty of fiber, with no added fat and no added sugar or salt. Don't be confused about breakfast. Try Nabisco shredded wheat. It's good today, and it'll be good tomorrow.
Hey, where's the elephant going?
It's okay. I'm sure he'll be back.
Dad, your hair!
This breathtaking moment was brought to you by the Canon E57 camcorder and its brilliant low-light capability.
Sinus pain, sinus pressure, it really hurts. Sinutab combines Tylenol's painkiller with Sudafed's decongestant to work better than either one alone. It stops the pain. Sinutab stops sinus pain.
In western Washington state tonight, residents braced for the onslaught of yet another storm, packing high winds and heavy rains. Rain already has doused the area, but it's the winds that most worried construction crews caught in a desperate race against time. Ron Allen reports.
Work crews in Washington state continue waging a frantic effort to save the Interstate 90 floating bridge, a mile-long span across Lake Washington that carries more than 100,000 commuters each day in and out of downtown Seattle. The bridge, a major link in the most expensive stretch of interstate highway in America, was damaged when a companion structure collapsed earlier this week. Debris from the older historic bridge, which was undergoing renovations, tore away at the new bridge's underwater moorings. Gusting winds and choppy waters now threaten to knock the new I-90 into the water as well.
I'm sure the possibility is there, but we're taking every precaution we can to avoid that.
Workers have begun stringing replacement cables fastened to heavy ship anchors to hold the bridge in place. Tugboats have been tethered to the span for additional stability in the heavy weather forecast for later today.
I'm real nervous. We got a 100-mile-an-hour wind before we got all our anchor cables in place, or a 50-mile-an-hour wind, and that's got me very concerned.
The bridges are casualties of the severe storm that forced nearly 2,000 Washington state residents from their homes. 19 major rivers flooded their banks as record rains drenched the Pacific Northwest. Damage estimates have reached $100 million and are still rising, not including the bridge. But after shoring up and inspecting the damaged structure, state officials cautiously have decided to reopen the bridge to traffic in one direction.
This bridge accommodates 110,000 cars a day. It's an awful lot of people. And if it were not safe, if we were not comfortable, we would not have opened it up.
But the fate of the beleaguered bridge remains tenuous. Officials are closely monitoring each bend and sway, leery of heavy rain and high winds forecast for tonight. Ron Allen, CBS News, Seattle.
The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments today in a case that could decide how far is too far for a prosecutor to go to try to solve a crime. Law correspondent Rita Braver has our report.
Kathy Burns wants the Supreme Court to let her file a $10 million lawsuit against the Indiana prosecutor she says ruined her life.
Prosecutors cannot do to people just what they want to do.
In 1982, Burns reported to Muncie, Indiana police that someone had broken into her house, shot and wounded her two sons, and knocked her out. Police investigators believe Burns herself committed the shooting. In violation of police rules, the prosecutor in the case authorized officers to hypnotize and question Burns.
And I told them, if you got no place else to turn, go ahead.
Burns confessed, but Reed did not tell the judge who issued a warrant for her arrest that the confession was obtained under hypnosis. Burns was put in a psychiatric hospital for 4 months.
Of course, I lost my kids. This is real hard for me, okay? And you lose a lot of friends.
Ultimately, the confession was discredited. All charges against Burns dropped. She filed suit against Reed, but lower courts ruled that prosecutors have absolute immunity in court cases. Today, Burns asked the Supreme Court to limit that immunity when prosecutors blatantly misbehave.
Where they just shred the Constitution into tiny bits and believe that they're absolutely immune.
But the state of Indiana, joined by the U.S. Justice Department, argued that would subject all prosecutors, good and bad, to an avalanche of frivolous suits.
That there would be a very real possibility that the next round after the acquittal would be the lawsuit against the prosecutor.
Kathy Burns says that's a small burden compared to what prosecutors can inflict on people like her. Rita Braver, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
Something for everyone tonight in the National Weather Service's outlook for December through February. The forecast calls for generally cold weather in the eastern half of the country, with the sharpest cold headed for the southern Appalachians. It should be mild in the western half of the nation. The weather people say it should be wetter than usual in the Pacific Northwest, along the Gulf and the South Atlantic coasts. Drier than average areas may include Southern California and the northern half of the Mississippi Valley. Stay with us now for more news, including Barry Peterson on a society in chaos, the crime wave in the Soviet Union.
How about dessert from Presto Salad Shooter?
Shoot some slices, salad shooter.
Point and shoot right into dessert or fruit salad.
Shoot some shreds, salad shooter.
For chocolatey, nutty dessert toppings.
Shoot it fast, shoot it neat, shoot it pretty. Salad shooter.
Presto Salad Shooter Slicer Shredder. Clean up easy, dishwasher safe, small enough to store anywhere. Great salads and much, much more.
Salad shooter.
Original, cordless, rechargeable, and now professional salad shooter.
Do you get colds?
Yes, I do.
Here's 2 cold medicines. Choose one.
Sudafed.
Which one of these would you choose? This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9.
I would choose the 9.
Why?
When I get a cold, I become very congested. It literally backs up into my sinuses, causing a headache.
Here's what you chose.
I would try maximum strength Dristan for my cold.
Dristan relieves 9 tough cold symptoms.
Now going with maximum strength Dristan.
Did you know that more moms and pops, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, all kinds of businesses look to AT&T for accurate billing, immediate credit for misdialed calls, an operator when you need one.
This is Clancy & Sons. Your piano's on its way.
All at extremely competitive prices. In fact, businesses use AT&T more often than all other long-distance companies combined. Quality service, competitive price. Another AT&T advantage.
Help Santa take away the hurt from Milwaukee's abused and neglected children. Please donate a toy to TV6 Holiday Toy Chest.
Sponsored by Prime Care Health Plan and Pick and Save.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev sent his regrets to Oslo today. He said he won't be able to pick up his Nobel Peace Prize at next month's ceremonies. The news agency TASS said Gorbachev is preoccupied with what it called, and I quote, the crucial situation at home. In addition to growing shortages of food, Soviet people are fighting a more frightening byproduct of perestroika, crime, as we hear from Barry Peterson.
It is one of Moscow's hottest selling items. It takes months to get, even though prices have doubled because demand is so high. No matter, Moscow citizens want a steel door.
They're afraid of some bandits, some robbers.
Almost nightly, the TV news includes crime news, burglaries, confiscated weapons, smuggling. And these days, it's not about the decadent West, but about the apartment house down the block.
A big hole.
Burglars came down the roof and through the balcony one night to steal Tanya Rupkin's audio tapes and her son's clothes. Came to steal what little she had because they had even less.
Of course, a lot of causes and reasons for crimes, but one of them is poverty.
Crime wasn't much of an issue in the days of the police state. The streets were safer then. Now, with the political revolution brought about by Mikhail Gorbachev, the police state is all but gone, and gone, too, is that sense of safety. Crime on the streets turned to protest on the streets by taxi drivers doing a funeral for one of their own who was gunned down. His death was only one in a recent series of shocking murders blamed on another growing element, organized crime. Soviets call it the mafia.
Are many people carrying this now?
I think a lot of. Nearly all of my friends does have this.
A can of mace from the West. Soviets arming themselves. What else to do, they ask, in this land of crime but no punishment?
There are no laws exist in the Soviet Union. No, it's a country without any law.
Late at night, few Soviets now risk a walk. The subways run nearly empty. We are afraid of our neighbors as never before, Soviets tell you. So they hide behind their steel doors, afraid now of the Moscow night. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
Presenting a turning point in the history of screwdriving. The Black & Decker cordless screwdriver. A screwdriver so powerful it can drive 100 screws on a single charge. The Black & Decker cordless screwdriver. A powerful gift idea.
My cereal tastes boring, bland, and not so good. But it's high in fiber.
My cereal tastes tempting, terrific, and very good. And it's high in fiber.
Really? What is that?
Fruit and fiber.
Ah, fruit and fiber.
With all those delicious crunchy oat clusters, juicy raisins, dates, and crispy walnuts, it tastes terrific.
Delicious.
And it's high in fiber, too.
Great tasting post-fruit and fiber cereal. Why would you want your fiber any other way?
You know, they can come out with any technology they want, but this is going to be the future. With the Norelco, I get a very clean, comfortable shave. Because I have rough hands, and if I can feel smooth, then I like it. It's just so easy. You know, it's a 90s type product.
Now, Norelco's patented lift and cut system has been improved to lift each hair and cut it even closer without the blades touching your skin.
It's very close, it's very comfortable, and it's clean.
The new Norelco, a new level of closeness and comfort.
The product. The proving grounds. The results. STP gas treatment is the edge.
Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, citing soaring oil prices and a growing credit crunch, said today the nation's economy has slumped into, and I quote him now, a meaningful downturn. In the wake of the oil shock, Greenspan said, and I quote again, the drop in employment and hours is causing personal income to decline at the very time that rising energy prices are squeezing many household budgets, unquote. He never used the word recession. As Greenspan spoke, the Commerce Department today said the nation's economy grew at a sluggish 1.7% annual rate in the year's third quarter. That is below the department's earlier estimate. Hard times picked the spot in 1990s America. Earlier this month, the government said that pockets of the country, such as the Southwest, so far have avoided the severe slump or recession that's already hit New York, New England, and other areas. But from Iowa to the Big Sky country, small towns are in trouble. Jerry Bowen looks at one community and its struggle to prevail.
The Big Sky country of eastern Montana, Badlands to the Powder River, wide open almost as the days when Buffalo Bill was making his name here. And there's still not much to stop the wind or most people from blowing through, especially people.
It's not that there are no young people left, but there are not many in relation to the number of older people.
From the prairies to the Great Plains, Iowa to the Dakotas, to here in Montana, the exodus from small towns has accelerated beyond all expectations. Not since the Dust Bowl days has there been such a rush to leave rural America. And towns like Baker are feeling it. Farming and oil set the pace here, and these days it's slow. The population is off 25% from the last census, down to 1,818 residents. The high school that oil money built is only half full. Stores have closed. Houses go begging. People, young people, are leaving to find work.
When they were growing up, they knew, either they were going to take the farm over from their dad or they could get a job in the oil patch. That doesn't happen anymore.
Well, you just kind of go from payday to payday and struggle and wonder what's going to happen to Baker.
Baker's an old railroad town where the trains seldom stop anymore. There always seems to be a room at Roy's Motel. And the locals joke, it's not exactly the end of the world, but you can see it from here. The town is that remote, that isolated.
Come to the manger, come and see the baby, come and hear the joyful news we bring.
Still, like the town choir warming up for Christmas, it's part of the fabric of life here. Splendid isolation worth preserving.
Just the freedom to go down the street and stop in the middle of the street and talk to somebody if you want to, and expect people to drive around you.
It's
a laid-back type of life. It's a close-knit community. It's more of an extended family.
And the family is fighting to survive. A video promotes a plan to import garbage from Minnesota.
There is one industry that has a potential for our community.
There's talk of harnessing geothermal wells, the hot springs hidden in the oil fields.
They've talked about possibly using it for lobster, shrimp farming, something like that.
And 67-year-old Ed Souza's invented a seasoned salt he uses to flavor steaks at his cafe. It could mean jobs.
If it works, we'll have a factory here, bottle it.
Baker is looking for something that will work, something to keep Lisa Peterson and her generation from moving on.
There's a lot of people that have left, a lot of friends have left, and they just seem to keep leaving. So I don't look for there to ever be much here, kind of a ghost town someday.
Montana's big sky country. The deer and the antelope still play here. It's the small town that's become endangered. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Baker, Montana.
And that's the news from our world tonight. We hope you and your family will stay tuned for 48 hours. Tonight is called Family Secrets, a look at the complex subject of adoption in this country and how it's changing. That's tonight at 8, 7 Central and Mountain. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you soon on 48 Hours.
Freedom's the one.
Only one gum leads the way when you've got dental work, and that's Freedent. Freedent won't stick to your dental work, so you can be confident chewing it. And because it also moistens your mouth and freshens your breath, Freedent's in a class by itself.
Freedom's the one that took the stick out of gum, and Freedent moistens your mouth. Yeah, moistens your mouth and freshens your breath while you chew.
Non-stick Freedent moistens your mouth and freshens your breath.
Share the country. Select number 5.
Why drink a cold pill? It's where they take contact with 600 tiny time pills that last up to 12 hours. Finito.
Contact saved the day.
Thunder!
There's a whole day's work in every contact. When you look at dairy food, does your stomach say no? Introducing new Dairy Ease, a natural nutritional supplement that helps people with lactose intolerance enjoy dairy food like everyone else. New Dairy Ease.